For decades, the Motor Racing Network has told you the story on the racetrack.
Cale's in the grass. Cale loses it. He tries to pull it back. Downey side by side. They make contact. Both head toward the wall.
But more often than not, that's only half the story. Now, we're pulling back the curtain on all those tall tales both in and out of the garage.
The whole situation between Cale and Donnie was simply, if I can't win it, I'm going to make sure you don't.
Stories the newer fans have never heard, and the older ones just can't get enough of.
When that right cross hit that jaw, line's over.
We're sending you into another MRN TaleSpin.
Trouble at turn 5.
Now, here's your host, Alex Hayden.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another edition of TaleSpin. I'm Alex Hayden. So glad you can join us as we now begin to sit down and learn some more about the best days of NASCAR racing that have ever happened. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and introduce you to the panel of our guests, certainly the longtime legendary voices of the Motor Racing Network. Barney Hall is alongside. We've got Jim Phillips to the far side of us. And in the middle, the man on the hot seat, as always, here on TaleSpin, our special guest, NASCAR Hall of Famer, the Iron Man, Jack Ingram. Jack, welcome, and are you sure you wanted to get involved in this thing?
Sure, thanks a lot.
Visiting with the Hall of Famer, Jack Ingram, and you mentioned Daytona, you mentioned short track racing, and you prefer Hickory as probably your favorite, but you raced some in the premier division of NASCAR. What is the Cup Series? Why didn't you ever decide, you know what, I think I want to do this on a full-time basis?
Actually, the Ford Motor Company hired 4 or 5 guys to drive race cars, rookies, and they wouldn't hire me. And I said, well, you know, if I'm too old to drive them cars, I ain't going to do this. I did some of it just because I got paid pretty well to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. But early on, they had Cale Yarborough and Benny Parsons, Swede Savage, Bosco Lowe, and Junior Johnson wanted me to do it, but the Ford Motor Company wouldn't. I was already too old. They didn't want to put no money. I was 2 or 3 years older than the rest of them.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? And it's one of those things you have to wrap your head around. It's like being only 2 or 3 years older, being quote-unquote too old.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Even though you knew that you could outdrive them and you can win more races than they could.
Me and my brother built a Chevelle, and we went to second track we went to was Wilkesboro, and first one was in Bristol when it was kind of a flat track. We went to Wilkesboro, and I was the fastest car there practicing. 5 minutes before we lined up to qualify, Bill Gazaway said we want to see the flywheel out of that car and tappets, thinking we had a roller tappet, and the rear end. I said, Bill, they're fixing to qualify. You're going to show me that stuff. So we took it all out, and he didn't even look at it. Went back the next day, and they had 3 days of qualifying. I was second fastest overall, and it was already hot by now. And I said, Bill, what's the idea of this? He says, well, he wouldn't tell me, but we went to Hickory, and he told me, I sat on the outside pole. I actually had fast time, and they give David Pearson a half a second, so he'd be on the pole. Jazzway told me, he said, look, when they start this race, you just go to the back. I'm not going to listen to them factory people tomorrow. I said, Jazzway, just run me off now if you want to. I led that race, and something happened to the engine halfway through it. People didn't realize what weight they let you build a Chevelle with a small motor in it and 200 or 300 pound light. That's how Bobby Allison gave me the idea of doing this. He did the same thing, and he had the same problems I had, except he was tough enough to stick it out, and I wasn't.
He was a pretty good engineer.
Yeah,
Bobby was.
What was it Junior told you about your engine after he ran your car at Asheville?
Actually, Junior says he got in that car, Junior Johnson. That's the first time I had somebody like Junior driving it.
Yeah.
And the steering wheel moved around. It just had a rod sticking up through there, and it would move a little bit. And he says, what's this? Ain't coming out of here. I know it won't come out of there. And Junior got out of it about 50 laps, about 150 laps, 250 lap race, and back was hurting. When I made the deal let Junior drive it, Junior called and said, "Boy, you got any tires?" I said, "No, I don't have any." I said, "We'll get some." He said, "Come over here to Bristol." I took a long wheelbase pickup truck over there. We tied every tire we could put on it, on the back of it, and put 2 of them in the front seat with me. I said, "Junior, we don't need this many, but you can use them the rest of the year." Junior come there, and he didn't even make a practice lap in it. Got there late, and I'd qualified it. He said, "You mind if I bend these front fenders?" I said, "No, why?" He said, "Rex White's pretty good on these short tracks, and I may have to shove him out of the way." But he didn't.
So tell me about engineering that you might do that NASCAR didn't know about, or you didn't want them to know about, or little things you did to help yourself through a race.
Well, there's one thing I done I'm not going to tell.
Okay. Well, I probably know what it is, but go ahead.
But what I was doing also, I was lowering that car on the racetrack, big time. And they went to inspection down there at Daytona on Saturday morning, about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and they said take the whole front end off of it. I got about a third of the way done. I said, "I ain't going to be able to race if I take this front end off." I said, "If I show you what I'm doing, will you not be too hard on me?" And they talked a little while, and they said, "Well, probably have to fine you." I said, "You tell me how much." And they said $250. I said, "Well, I'll show you what I'm doing." And I showed them. They didn't have a clue. That went on for about a year.
Why would you offer that up if it was
Yeah,
such
I
an
mean,
advantage?
We got to make a deal or not race. I can't take this thing all apart.
Yeah.
I showed them what I was doing, and I had a pin in it in both sides of the front end in the weight jack. It would collapse, and you couldn't see where they sheared off.
Is that something you came up with, or your brother, or a combination?
I figured all that out. I'm going to tell this because it's been a long time.
It's been a long time, Jack, since you raced.
I took a restrictor plate out at Daytona and put it back in there, and they couldn't catch me. I qualified, and I backed off on it in both corners and sat on a pole bar over 4 miles an hour.
Just got lucky, didn't you?
And they was a NASCAR official sitting right there on front of a Pontiac car where I pulled in the pits. And then they'd let you jack it up and take the wheels off of it. We jacked it up and took the wheels off. We had this fixed where I could get that restrictor plate out and put it. We had an open plate and put the restrictor plate back in it. They had carburetor sealing things on the hood pins. Couldn't get the hood up, but they let you take the wheels off. And we changed that, and there's a big crowd gathering around there, and they got cup people take that carburetor off. Some inspectors cup job, and he was winding this stud out, put 2 jam nuts on it and winding it out, and the other bolts was out. He had them out. You could hear a pin drop in that place, and he lifted that carburetor up, and there was that restrictor plate. and they kept me there at about 7 o'clock. They'd have these meetings, and then they'd come back out and with this kind of deal and other kind of deal. I said, "I ain't done that." David Pearson, I don't know why he showed up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, told me, he said, "Don't you tell them people nothing."
Sounds like David.
Surely David wouldn't do something like that.
Just as quick as he could.
Yeah.
But if they'd have caught me, I'd have been done. But if they'd have run me out of that place fast, you know what happened. They even offered, if I'd tell them what to do, "We'll let you qualify tomorrow." I said, "No, I ain't done nothing."
How much of that, I mean, you're always trying to get that competitive advantage to win races. No question about it. But did it ever get to a point where it almost became a game to you to see what you could get by NASCAR?
Now, I knew what I could probably do most all the time, and it was very little. I was never thrown out of a NASCAR race.
Couldn't catch you.
How about when they
Never thrown out.
when they
There's a lot of
changed
people
from
throwed out, I never was.
to Bobby Scruggs? He's pretty tough. Bobby Scruggs that worked for in the Busch Series. He's pretty good inspector.
Oh yeah.
He liked to really get down to the grind and catch things. I mean, he had a lot of parts and stuff he collected in that NASCAR.
He
truck.
had none of mine.
Of all the drivers you raced against in your career, who was the dirtiest driver you ever raced against?
Oh, here we go.
Bob Bresley.
Well, that's funny that you would say that he would go on a lot of lists. Why was that? Why was Bob? I mean, now you're talking about short tracks, all tracks. Bob Bresley.
Bob, he only raced Asheville and Hickory, pretty much. He's a little bit other places. But we'd stay gone all the time, and I'd come back, maybe run 3 or 4 races in a row, and start out running him, and he'd been winning the race, and he'd spin me out, and just one deal right after another, and it happened all the time.
But he had some big boys to back him up, sons, I mean, Charlie and Robert.
I had some, too.
Did you ever get in a fight with them?
Oh, yeah, several times.
I don't doubt that at all. It was most time in Asheville.
One time it was in Harris, little outlaw track. Matter of fact, it was NASCAR at the time that fight started there. Bob wrecked me after the race was over. And
I'm sure that brought on a fight.
And yeah, I had him like this, and was hitting him. And they got that stop, and they put him in the police car. And this guy named Tommy Brown poured gas out on that police car, and somebody set the fire. And it was laughing up across the top of it, and the cop was under the wheel, jumped out and run. The sheriff himself got in it and drove it off the fire, otherwise there wouldn't been no Bob Bresley.
All's fair in racing, right?
Let's go. Okay. Of all the drivers that you raced against, who was the cleanest and I mean just good?
Harry Gant.
Harry Gant. Well, I always thought that about Harry too, and I found out one thing. Harry's one of the few right foot breakers that break.
Actually, believe it or not, some of the best people ever done that with right foot.
And a lot of you guys were left-handed. I found that out too, and watching you guys, a lot of you. What helped a left-handed guy driving a race car?
There was a study done in Europe. I read a study of it. It wasn't nothing to do with racing. That left-handed people can see 2 things at the same time. A right-handed person can't. And I noticed that on a racetrack that I'd see something happening and I'd pull over. People come by me, boom.
Right.
And you're talking 2 or 3 tenths of a second, you're in a world of trouble. And but as far as a lot of you people using right foot braking, Harry done it, Butch Lindley, David Pearson. I don't know who else, but
some of those tracks, it didn't seem like to me that you could do that and be successful.
Junior brakes with his right foot because he asked me if I could bend them front fenders. He run somebody close, place like Asheville, you're going to bend them front fenders. And I told him he'd bend them if you wanted to. There's plenty of them around, 55 Chevrolet fenders. And I said, you use your left foot? He said, no, I use my right foot. I don't know. Actually, there wasn't as many people use their. If you run a lot of real short racetracks, you had to use your left foot because you hit people if you didn't.
And even if you do.
I got in a wreck at Dover, Delaware, and I broke a little bone in my left foot. And I couldn't brake. I couldn't put any pressure on it. We was at Orange County, and I went into the turn pretty hard, and I had my foot on the brake, and I needed to get in the throttle, get it down away from the wall. I hit the wall because I couldn't do that quick enough. But
Happens quick.
yeah, when I got home that Sunday, I took a ziz wheel and cut that cast off that leg. I wasn't going to do that no more.
Folks, this is another edition of TaleSpin. If you have somebody that you want to have on the show that you may want to hear some stories about, maybe it's a favorite of yours, we have a new hotline that you can call at 844-4-ASK-MRN. Call that number, leave a message on there, and tell us who you would like to have on TaleSpin to hear some more of these stories. So, gentlemen, thanks so much. It's been a lot of fun. The legendary MRN announcers, Jim Chopper Phillips, Barney Hall, and the NASCAR Hall of Famer, the Iron Man, Jack Ingram. I'm Alex Hayden. Join us again on another edition of TaleSpin.